Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Happy Easter, everybody. Happy Easter to you. Happy Passover. Happy, happy, happy. Hope you have a great weekend. The Saturday poll question at Smerconish.com. The Saturday poll question at Smerconish.com. Given that Kilmar Abrego Garcia entered the U.S. illegally, but was deported without due process, should he be brought back to the U.S. to have his case properly heard? Very deliberately worded. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Let me thank my friends at Parx Casino for sponsoring the daily poll question. It's my casino of choice. Action, excitement, headline entertainment right in the Philly burbs, proximal to anybody in the northeastern part of the country. I'm looking at you, New York City, 90 minutes away, 90 miles away. Even for most of Jersey, your table games are closer at Parx than they are down the shore, as we say. Thousands of hot online slots, state-of-the-art sports book, beautiful poker room, all-weather beer garden, collection of award-winning restaurants, and headline entertainment that includes comedian Brian Regan, comedian Russell Peters, Larry the Cable Guy, country artist Ashley McBride, the sounds of Taj Mahal and Keb Mo, Clutch, Gary Clark Jr., comedian Mark Normand, KC and the Sunshine Band, and the English reggae and pop band UB40. Don't forget, dinner and drinks before the show. Make it a night. Come eat, drink, play cards, watch great entertainment. ParxCasino.com. That's where you get your tickets. This is how you win. Parx Casino, you got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, you heard the poll question. Given that Kilmar Abrego Garcia entered the U.S. illegally, but was deported without due process, should he be brought back to the U.S. to have his case properly heard? He was not, Abrego Garcia was not removed under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. He was not. However, as you digest the day's news today, you're going to find out that there was a Supreme Court blockage issued in the wee hours of this morning. Two dissents, Justices Alito and Thomas. But here's the headline I'm holding from the Washington Post. Supreme Court blocks Alien Enemies Act deportation of Venezuelan men. Does it directly impact the case that is most high profile this week? It doesn't directly, but it certainly does indirectly. And it's caused me to rewrite early this morning the commentary that I intend to deliver on CNN at 9 o'clock, where I'm taking my commentary more now in a direction that I had intended of constitutional crisis. In fact, this is the way that I'm going to begin what I'm going to say. I'm still working on it, which is the beauty of these live communications, is that you often catch me when I'm still in a deliberative mode. The thesis of what I was going to say and what I will still say, as I said on radio this week, is that there have been three high-profile issues very much in the news this week where I believe President Trump is on the wrong side on the merits of each of them. Defunding Harvard, not facilitating, quote unquote, facilitating. If you're really in the weeds on this, you know why I'm doing the air quote on the facilitation word, facilitating Abrego Garcia's return, and also reducing the IRS workforce by 40%, where each of those, I think, politically is something that benefits him. Hang on, got to sip my Wawa coffee. Each of those, I think, is an instance where it benefits him. Fighting Harvard, where he's against the elites and the progressives at that bastion of liberalism. It's not like he's fighting Penn State. Okay, it's not like he's fighting Michigan State. Fill in the blank. He's taking on Harvard, and fighting Harvard and the perception of academia and eggheads, says the guy with a bald head, politically is a winning hand. Remember when Elise Stefanik browbeat the three presidents, Harvard, MIT, and Penn? Won that politically speaking. Even though, as I explained on radio and tried to explain on television, what those presidents were saying legally was correct. But it's a losing argument. It's a losing argument, and it remains a losing argument. The IRS It was President Biden who wanted to beef up the IRS. I'm not saying that's why he lost, but it was a losing argument. And yet it makes no sense to be cheering on Trump eviscerating the IRS when the nation has a $37 trillion debt, and we're going to lose revenues already. And I had this conversation on radio this week. Here's the audit rate, if you can see it. The audit rates in the United States are in significant decline. And if you wipe out 40% of the IRS workforce, fewer people are going to be audited. Wealthy people who can already employ lawyers and pursue different means, some lawful and some not, to hide their income, are just not going to be as, in my opinion, are not going to be as forthcoming and honest when they file their returns, because they're going to look at this and say, this is the year the IRS can't afford to scrutinize my return. Again, wrong on the merits, but politically speaking, Trump's on the side of fighting the IRS and fighting Harvard and fighting against the return of Abrego Garcia. I'm doing the weave. Don't worry. I'm going to come back to the main premise. I still have this New York Post from, what was it, Thursday? Yeah, from Thursday. I mean, this is the Maryland mom. This is the Maryland mom whose daughter was murdered. And on the day that Chris Van Hollen was in El Salvador seeking to, coerce the return of Abrego Garcia, this mom is standing at the White House, in the White House press room, talking about her daughter, Rachel, and saying, he never reached out for me. He's in El Salvador and has gone to great lengths to try and bring back to the United States a guy who, by all accounts, came into the country illegally. My daughter was murdered by a migrant from El Salvador, and my phone never even rang with Senator Van Hollen. So, again, Abrego Garcia and Trump, wrong on the merits, but politically speaking, Trump is in the right. Politically speaking, it's a winning issue for him. I have argued on radio, and I'll argue on television again today. The White House relishes this fight, that Van Hollen, whether it was really a margarita or it wasn't a margarita, the fact that he's essentially breaking bread with a guy who never should have been admitted to the United States, and now puts Democrats in the position of arguing for him at a time when, at least Fox News is reporting, his wife made a claim of domestic violence in her own hand, even if she doesn't want to stand by it now. And there's a question as to whether he was involved in human trafficking or whether a carload of guys were really headed to a construction site. If you're read in on those stories, then you know what I'm talking about. Okay, now here's the other update. The weave. Here's the other update. The update is that in the wee hours of this morning, the Supreme Court stepped in and blocked the Alien Enemies Act from being utilized with regard to a number of Venezuelans who are now in Texas. Again, the case that is getting all the attention of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, not technically one of these, but I think it all brings us one step closer to a constitutional crisis. So I've rewritten the intro for my commentary today to begin this way. One step closer to crisis. Early this morning, the U.S. Supreme Court blocked deportations by the Trump administration of at least 30 alleged Venezuelan gang members who immigration advocates say were at imminent risk of being removed. Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented. The administration was preparing to again rely on the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a wartime statute heretofore rarely invoked that was used as the basis for President Trump deporting more than 130 Venezuelans on March 15. The action by the Supreme Court caps a week in which President Trump has been on the wrong side of three high-profile issues, none of which seem to have cost him politically, but that might be about to change. And I go on to say that the White House, with regard to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, doctored a New York Times headline yesterday and said, he's never coming back. It raises the question of whether we are finally at a point when the White House is going to be in a standoff with the Supreme Court of the United States. And I'm going to close my commentary with a quote from Irwin Sheamarinsky, the dean of the Berkeley School of Law, who's a frequent guest of mine, brilliant guy, constitutional scholar. Sheamarinsky wrote for the LA Times this week, and he said, "Until now, I did not appreciate how much our constitutional democracy depends on the good faith of those who govern us to comply with the law, including court orders. Are there sufficient guardrails to protect us when an administration will not comply? Will we continue to be a nation under the rule of law? We shall see. We shall see." And I think we're at that moment. Now with this Supreme Court order about the Alien Enemies Act, again, it doesn't directly apply to the guy getting all the attention, and yet it does. But is the Trump administration going to honor that court order? That's where we are. That's where we are. So at long last, perhaps, on the verge of seeing if the administration is going to follow the rule of law. Big stuff, big stakes, big stakes. But the last thing I want to say is that although I identify these three issues, Harvard, Abrego Garcia, and the IRS, as benefiting Trump politically, the polling data, and I'm going to rely on this on television today as well, the polling data says Americans overwhelmingly, I think it's 97% of Democrats and 68% of Republicans, want the rule of law followed. So everything I've told you about Trump benefiting politically on these issues, I think goes out the window if there is a constitutional standoff between the court and the administration because President Trump doesn't honor a Supreme Court order. I don't know. I don't know that he's going to do that, but I think that's where we are. I know. I'm sorry. That's a lot of heavy stuff. Easter weekend, even wore my tie. That's a winner, right? You like that? Very Easter eggish. So go vote on today's poll question. I think it'll probably be overwhelming that people are going to say, bring him back. But I worded it very carefully to give both sides. He didn't have due process, but he never should have been here to begin with. So what do? Leave him in El Salvador or bring him back to El Salvador, put him in the system so he's afforded due process, and then he gets shipped out. I think that's probably what happens. But the Trump administration says, we're not bringing him back. Given that Kilmar Abrego Garcia entered the U.S. illegally but was deported without due process, should he be brought back to the U.S. to have his case properly heard? I think it'll be a big vote getter today at Smerconish.com. Wish you good things this weekend, okay? And thank you so much. Like and subscribe. Did we just break 60,000? I should be able to see this somewhere here. To turn a friend on to our YouTube conversations, which just continue to grow in popularity. Can I get a little love here? Some like and subscribing. Mark Whalen, peace to you. I love that. Joanne Corley, happy Easter. Nancy Lawrence, have a good show. Nancy, I will. I'm scrambling a little bit here just because I've got to deal with the breaking news and then get on the air. Hey, by the way, can I tell you all one other thing? Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, John Sabini. Just a little inside insight. I didn't want to use my Mingle project or my daily poll question background today because I wanted you to see where I am. I'm in my Philadelphia studio, and I think I'm here with just 4 shows remaining because this facility is closing. It's been great for 12 years, 10 of the 12 always, but for 12 years, all 12 years that I've been at CNN, this is mostly where I've delivered the show. So change is a coming, and I am a creature of habit, and I don't react well to change. So, okay. Oh, SG, don't forget the Oklahoma City anniversary, please. I promise you, I'm not going to forget it. Sarah Sweet, my friend who lost her father 30 years ago today, has penned a really poignant essay that is in today's newsletter. Please read it. And on television today, I definitely will be making mention of Oklahoma City. And it's so interesting that you say that, because last night I watched the first two installments of this National Geographic documentary about Oklahoma City. I highly recommend it to all of you. It's really stunning. And you know why it's stunning? Because the video that they have, I'd never seen before, and they take you inside one of the network affiliates in Oklahoma City on that day, and you experience Oklahoma City in a way never before. Okay, gotta run. Thank you all. See you soon.